Hola, mi gente, and welcome back to another episode of Vino y la Verdad, hosted by Ladies of Wine and Wisdom 5. Hi, Gloria.
Hola, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful.
It's just us two today holding down the fort.
It's just us, just the two of us.
Just
We
the
can make
two,
it
if
if
we
we try,
try,
just
just
the
the
two
two
of
of us.
us. You
You
and
and I.
I.
That's right, just the two of us, Coño. We got this.
That's it.
So we're going to jump straight into spilling the
Yes.
wine because there's a couple of things that I
Oh,
want to
man.
talk about.
Hay mucho jugo.
Hay mucho té, vino, jugo de todo. So the first thing I want to talk about is, of course, two of my favorite people were honored with and awarded the American Icon Award, which is my favorite, Whoopi Goldberg. I'm a big
Yes.
fan of hers. And of
Yes.
course, our one and only Mark Anthony.
Go Flaco. Go
Yes,
Flaco.
yes, 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 yes. Yes,
Definitely.
he was honored for he won the award for all of his humanitarian work, aside from his legacy in salsa, he does do a lot of work for children.
Yes, he does.
Excuse me, and different organizations, and he's always given back to his community throughout his entire career. So cheers to
Cheers. God
Whoopi
bless.
and
Absolutely.
to Mark Anthony for winning the American Icon Award. It is well deserved.
Amen. So true. That's awesome.
Yes, 100%.
So awesome.
Yeah. The other person I want to talk about is I want to give kudos to Linda Evangelista, the amazing model, right? She was the era of Cindy Crawford. And she actually wrote a book. It's called Linda Evangelista, photographed by Stephen Meisel. And they also have a docu-series called Runway, I think it is, on Apple TV.
Okay.
And it's basically talking about their history as models and the fact that the four of them grew up in the modeling industry together. Naomi Campbell, Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelista, and I forget who the fourth one is. But the series is amazing. It's a 2-part docu-series, and it talks about their legacy, how they got into modeling, and their journey through modeling and the differences between modeling back then to modeling now.
Wow.
And one of the things that stuck out to me the most was where she said, and she said it today on her interview on The View, she said that back then, if a button fell off, you just rolled with it, right? If your eyelashes fell off, you just roll with it. If you had a mosquito bite, or you had a stretch mark, whatever it was, you roll with it. You made it part of your shoot, right? Here, they're like, oh, it's a button. Don't worry, we'll put it back on. Oh, don't worry, we'll fix it. Everything is doctored, right? Everything is Photoshop. And she's like, so she feels that a lot of the art that made them the supermodels that they are today is missed, is not there anymore. And I totally agree with that.
I agree.
I
agree 100%.
I agree. I think the big beauty of the high level of them being supermodels was the fact that they were themselves, and this was it. There was none of that. So you got to watch that docu-series on Apple TV. It's really, really great. And she also spoke on her interview about her journey with breast cancer. She was diagnosed in 2018, and then she had a relapse and she had a breast cancer again. And she speaks in her book about how each experience with breast cancer was different. Wow. And it made her who she is today, aside from the supermodel that everybody knows as Linda Evangelista. So go check out her
cheers
book.
To her. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool watching that interview. And last, but definitely not least,
Kelly
Clarkson. Another one of my faves. I know a lot of people.
Cheers to her as well.
Yes, another Aries. I know a lot of people don't, they think she's a little too hyper. I don't care. She reminds me of my energy. She's actually now a New Yorker. She moved to New York, and she moved her show to New York. It's being aired and recorded out of 30 Rock, which is amazing for her and her career. And she looks amazing. She lost a ton of weight.
Yeah.
And she basically said that she just needed a new start and a new beginning and a new
Good for
place
her.
after her divorce.
Amen.
And I applaud her
Cheers
for that.
to her.
Yeah.
Cheers to her.
Cheers to her.
Amen.
I applaud her for that, for recognizing that sometimes you just need to move out of that space in order to embrace everything else that's coming your way. So kudos to Kelly and cheers to you, for showing that there is life after divorce.
Amen.
It's what you make of it.
Life goes on, baby. Life goes on.
Life goes on. So
you're not the first, you're not the last.
No, you're not the first and you're not the last. And you'd be surprised sometimes when you realize letting go of what's not for you, it just opens up so much more.
Everything opens up that needs to open for you.
100%. It totally is. So that was our Spilling the Wine segment. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with our Pero Porque Why segment with author of Gasping for Air, Dana Diaz. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to our Pero Porque Why segment, where we have the one and only Dana Diaz, author of Gasping for Air. Welcome.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
How are you guys?
Great. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I'm great. It's a rainy day here, so
have you.
It's cold, but I've got my hot cocoa and I've got my heater on. I've got my sweater. I'm all ready.
We're warming up with wine.
Yes. Cheers.
Yeah, I know. I would go there, but I'm too cold for that right now. I put this cookie dough whiskey in my cocoa usually.
Oh,
That's
nice.
good
That
stuff.
sounds
Yeah.
yummers.
That sounds good.
Some whipped cream. Yeah. I know how to do a cocoa.
Well, first and foremost, we want to thank you for reaching out to us and wanting to be on our show. We wanted to have you on the show in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and also because your story intrigued us. A lot of people, affiliate domestic violence with either, verbal abuse or physical abuse, but nobody really thinks about the mental aspect of it. And narcissism is really big when it comes to manipulation. And I wanted to hear your story. We wanted, to see, how you got yourself out of that long-term relationship.
Yeah.
And the title of your book is amazing. It's
thank you.
Just automatically just puts a picture of literally gasping for air. So please tell us about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot. It's hard to fit 25 years into a podcast or a book, but like you said, the narcissistic abuse, what's so difficult about it and what makes it more traumatic than the other abuses, not that to minimize them in any way, but narcissistic abuse can compromise any or all types of abuse. So you may have physical abuse. You of course are verbally abused through gaslighting and manipulation. There's legal abuse, where they threaten, using legal force to take your kids away from you, or they're always threatening you with something. There's sexual abuse. Even if you're married, believe me, somebody can violate you in ways that you don't want to be intimate with them. They just come at you from all these different directions to basically entrap you in the situation, because there's so many people that say, well, I would never be submissive, or I would just walk away. Well, you say that, but then you're in this situation, and unfortunately with mine, it got to the point towards the end where, it was straight up threats, either he was going to kill himself or me. And, I didn't want to die. So yeah, you learn to submit just to keep peace for yourself and your kid. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting to even talk about gasping for air. I had to take a deep breath, but, to address the title of the book, and I appreciate you acknowledging the title, that actually is not just reference to being in a narcissistic situation. And yes, the exhaustion of it, but I actually developed a lung disease as a result of the chronic stress of the abuse. I was abused as a child, but then by the end of this 25-year relationship with my ex, I was so sick. Like I literally, I was experiencing dozens of symptoms, random things like my vision was blurry. I was blacking out. I was short of breath. My arm would go completely numb. My hands were tingly, digestive issues, cardiovascular issues, all kinds of things. Like something was wrong. But then I actually remember very clearly November 3rd of 2018, we had another fight that was no different than any other situation we had. And then there was a sexual incident that I was not really consenting to, but how do you rationalize that when you're legally married to the person? But okay, it happened. But I think I was just so traumatized by the whole thing that night that the next day I started having like this frequent urinary stuff going on. Like I'm not 90. I should not be going 14 times an hour all day long. And then within 2 weeks after that, I had dropped to 93 pounds.
Wow.
I'm generally small, but I'm not 93 pounds small. No woman in their 40s should be 93 pounds. And I was skeletal and my cheeks were hollow. Even people I saw regularly at work were scared when they saw me because it happened so fast. So long and short, go to the doctor. They don't know what's wrong with me. Another doctor says I must be a hypochondriac. I'm hypersensitive to my body because they can't figure out what's wrong with me. Other doctors are running tests, validating the things that I'm experiencing, but nobody knows what actually, the actual problem is. They just want to throw a pill at the little symptoms. Finally get with a neurologist and a functional medicine doctor that get me with Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic does a cortisol test. And for those who don't know, a cortisol is a stress hormone similar to adrenaline. When you're under a lot of stress, it's running through your body, kind of keeps you going. I had apparently so much stress running through me. This cortisol test, the results from Mayo, they're like, we must have compromised the lab, results because there's no way they're that high. So they reran the test, did a whole new test, and they got those tests back. And they said, oh my gosh, your levels are like astronomical. To give people an idea, your levels at any time of day, 24/7, should be somewhere between 100 and 600. Mine were 2,500 and up all the time. So I was autoimmune. My body thought it had to eradicate something like a virus or cancer. So all my white blood cells ended up killing each other off and damaging most of my organ systems to the point where by the end of 2019, my neurologist sat me down and said, your body is shutting down. And I said, well, that doesn't surprise me because at that point I could barely tear toilet paper off the roll to take care of myself in the bathroom. I could barely breathe. I could barely move. And he said, you have to change your life circumstance, for liability. He couldn't say, get the hell out of that house.
Right.
But he impressed. I mean, he even called me from his home a few times to check on me. So it felt good that somebody cared and somebody finally saw me and saw what was happening, because the problem with any abuser, but especially narcissists, are that they're out in the world looking like normal people.
Yeah.
They even look charitable and generous and funny and charming. And so for you to go out there and even think to open your mouth and say, this is what this person is doing to me, nobody believes you. Not a damn person.
No.
You are a liar. You are crazy.
Right.
You're delusional. You should be locked up. You're an unfit mother, all these things. And believe me, all that had been said about me. And so it's very frustrating, but either way, after the doctor said that at the end of 2019, I literally, at that point, I was living in my basement because I didn't even trust sleeping in the same bed with this man. I even would put a 2x4 under the knob of the basement door because I didn't trust that he wouldn't try to come at me at night when I was vulnerable trying to sleep. So I just didn't sleep either. How could I? But it was just such a whirlwind how we got there, because to take people back to the beginning of this, the day he walked into my life, he walked into my office where I worked, and immediately, first time I ever met him, I didn't like him. I thought he was a jerk. He reminded me of my abusive stepfather, who's also a narcissist. Yeah. And I thought, oh, no. He was aloof. He was arrogant. He felt entitled. And I'm looking at him like, he's not anything special. This is no Brad Pitt or anything. Like, you have no right to be walking around like this. But I wasn't going to give into that. I wasn't going to have any part of it. But looking back, how did I fall into it? Because of my childhood. And I know people get annoyed when you blame the parents, but, you know, it is very true. And, you know, I'll just give a snippet of my childhood. I keep going backwards here, but my mother had me. I was a teenage pregnancy. She didn't even want me. Immediately after I was born, I came out, the placenta came out, she had her tubes tied, because back then they would tie your tubes if you didn't want kids, even if you were a teenager. So, I mean, this woman did not want me, okay? She did not want any child. So she was very emotionally distant. She was very detached from me. So she gets married to this king of all narcissists, and every single day of my life, as far back as I can remember, up until the day I walked out when I was 18, he would tell me very directly. And I always tell people, think about a 4 or 5-year-old little girl, a 7 or 8-year-old little girl, 10 years old. Think about saying these words. If somebody said this to your child, nobody ever wanted you. You should have never been born. I shouldn't have to pay for another man's child. You should be more grateful that I'm feeding you and clothing you and giving you shelter. You're a burden. You're stupid. You're fat. He would tell me as a little girl, I'm eating peanut butter jelly sandwiches for lunch, and he would tell me they were going to make me fat. My mother makes pasta for dinner when I'm a teenager. That's going to make your hips widen like a middle-aged woman. You're going to get fat. All these things he's telling me, I knew they were wrong. I was strong-willed. I told him where he could stick it. I called him names I shouldn't have known the words to. But at the end of the day, I internalized it.
You're making me itch.
I'm sorry.
No.
I'm allergic to assholes too.
No, it's okay.
You could edit that out. But, you know, I internalized it. I knew it was wrong, and I knew he was wrong. But when that's all you hear, and I'm going to my mother and she's turning her head to it. He never said that. You're lying. You're trying to get attention. And then the worst of it, my favorite thing she would tell me that he's just treating you so badly because that's just how much he's showing you how much he cares about you. Basically telling me if somebody loves you, they're going to treat you like crap. So I go out in the world not wanting to believe any of this, but unfortunately I had internalized it to the point where I was obviously a codependent, people pleasing. I was like a puppy waiting to get a treat. I was wagging my tail, see me wagging my little butt. I'm wagging my tail, you know, hoping somebody will give me a little attention, give me that little treat, because I was so starved for love that I would take anything I could get. So this jerk walks in my life. I don't want any part of him. I don't want anything to do with him, but I am lonely. I am alone. It's the holidays. Everybody's coupling up. People are getting engaged and going to parties and all this stuff. I wanted that too. And I was young, as I was naive. And then I started, I was acting more like my mother than I ever wanted to. I was enabling and excusing. I was saying, well, maybe I'm being too judgmental. Maybe I'm being picky. Give him a chance. Yeah, I gave him a chance, and immediately still nothing changed. The first time we hung out, he was spewing his beer at me. I mean, talk about degrading and humiliating. It was like trying to talk to a frat boy, and he took advantage of me sexually that night. And did I stop it? No. Did I really consent to it? If I had been asked if I wanted to do that with him, no. But I let it happen because he wanted that, and I wanted to feel needed, and I wanted to feel wanted. And is that right? Would I just die if I had a daughter that said she was in that situation? It would break my heart. But that's just how I felt, whether it's right or
You were
wrong.
filling a void.
Yeah,
You were
I
trying to
was.
fill a void.
I was just trying to feel. I was just trying to feel like I had some value or worth, even if it was just sexually for that one night to this jackass that I wanted no part of. It made me feel like maybe somebody did want me in their life. Maybe I was lovable. And by the end of that night, typical narcissist, he loved me. I was the one. It was the two of us against the world. We were meant to be all the romantic crap that you hear. And here's me being young and naive, thinking I just gave my body to this man. And, you know, I wanted to believe it. I didn't, because I wasn't stupid, but I thought, well, I'm in it now. I guess we're going to try this. But, you know, from there, the part of narcissism that I guess I didn't realize until I lived it, you just, looking back, you're not sure how you got from point A to point B. Like, I understand how I got in the situation, but we weren't together maybe 3 weeks when he had his first really violent, angry outburst. And it was over something so menial and unreasonable and meaningless. It was over a compact disc. Like, that's what we played music on for those who aren't of our age. Sorry. We have to clarify these things for the youngins out there.
Yeah.
But it was over damn music, like, seriously. And it turned into a whole thing, and stuff is flying across the room. And I'm just like, no. I came out of a house that was like, I'm not doing this. Walk out. Well, you know, he lures me back. And that's the thing about narcissists. They know what to say. They know what. I'm sorry. It'll never happen again. I love you. All this stuff.
Yeah.
So then I'm thinking, okay, you know, and then through the 25 years, it was a series of things like this where, you know, it's like every time something happened, he'd push just a little harder. So I was always at that point, just like with this compact disc situation, where it was like, okay, I didn't like it, and it's enough of a deal breaker for me to walk away, but it wasn't so extreme that I would walk away, if that makes any sense. So you're teetering, like, you can excuse it, but you're not sure. You just don't know which way to go. But then the next time something happens, it's like it's a little worse. And then the next time it's a little worse. And then the next thing you know, you're having a crowbar swung at your head, and there's prescription pills involved in a situation, and you're being dragged into a bathroom, lifeless and limp, thinking you're going to die. But then you wake up and surprise everybody. And, you know, it just, you know, I look back, like, how did I get from here to here? How did I get to where it's the two of us against the world, and you're the one to telling our neighbors you're planning to kill me? I mean, like, this is, it really is insane. And with no remorse, no regret, no consideration, no nothing. And even when I got sick, we were still legally married. I thought any human being, like, I mean, I'm your wife. Like, if you cared about me ever, even the tiniest bit, did he? No. He used it just like narcissists do. They use everything about you. I refer to it in the book like he was trying to kill me now that he knew he could affect me with stress. He was trying to kill me without getting his hands dirty. He was going to get the job done, but then hands off, he didn't do it, but then he would gladly go out into the world being, oh, poor me, my poor sick wife, and I lost her, and now I'm a single dad, and play this victim crap so that he would get everybody's pity. And I hate to say, but I don't know if it's the half Latina in me, but I was just like, oh, hell no, bro.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not giving you that.
That's
That
what
is
narcissists
not
do, right?
happening.
They play the victim to people.
Yeah, always.
Because they're the nicest person
Mhm.
in front of people. No one
Oh,
knows who
the
they really
best.
are.
Yes.
And then that's who they are. It's a me world. It's all about me for them.
Mhm.
Nobody
Everything
else
comes back to
counts,
them. They
just
don't
them.
do anything unless there's something in it for them.
For
Yeah.
them. Mhm.
And that's why I
Yeah.
was like, he is not getting to use my illness that he caused
Right.
to go get pity from anybody out there,
let me
because
tell you,
I
a
would
lot of
start
peop-
hearing from people
A
like,
lot of people
oh,
are not
he
aware
feels
of
so
it.
bad.
But
Yeah.
stress will kill you.
Yeah.
Stress will kill you.
Yes.
You know,
And that's one of the reasons I wrote this book, because I don't think people, I mean, there's many books out there about abuse and even narcissism and all that, but I had no idea. I was like, this is seriously happening because I've lived in, I mean, call it chronic stress. Abuse is a little more than chronic stress, even if you're just dealing with the gaslighting and manipulation, but constantly every day being bombarded, not to mention the part of narcissism people also judge the, oh, well, if somebody did that to me, I would leave. If they cheated on me that much, I would leave. If they were trying to control me.
I love
you
when
can't
people,
just
when
leave.
people, have a comment on what they would do in a situation that they're
you're not living
in.
the situation, right?
That always like
it's not
baffles
realistic.
me.
No.
Yeah.
I have a question for you because you said you have children. Were you not fearful of giving this man a child? And when you had the baby, were you more like super protective because you knew the environment you were bringing this child into?
Oh, you just pulled the string like one of those string dolls now. Okay. So
Sorry.
no, don't ever be sorry, because this is important.
Yeah.
And again, this is
It's
stuff
funny, I was
that,
thinking the same thing. What about the kids? Where the kids
Yeah, me too.
see
I was
all
like,
this?
I'm like, she's
Well,
talking about
how
him being
many
a single
kids
dad, but
are,
I'm like, yeah.
well, first of all, I had a few miscarriages before we had our son.
I'm
They're one of the most horrific things I suffered in this marriage was not even his attempts to kill me. It was one of the miscarriages I had and his response to it, which if anyone's interested, I hate to say, but get the book. It was, see, and you're going to get me now. I've only cried on 3 podcasts and it was all about this. Don't ever be sorry. This is real crap that people need to understand. I was going through a miscarriage and this man was turning up the TV because I was interrupting his ability to watch a show, while I'm bleeding on our kitchen floor and begging for help. He is disgusting and cruel, but this is how narcissists are. So I was afraid. I actually never wanted children because I was terrified. I think I made the decision around 12 years old that based on the environment I grew up in, I was like, there's no way, because they always say you turn into your parents. And I was like, if there's even the slightest chance that I could turn into my mother or my stepfather, there was no way I was going to do that to another human being. And I felt like I hadn't had any positive, role models for parents,
right,
that I had any business trying to parent a child. And obviously my ex, being a narcissist and into himself, he was not trying to have kids either. That was something we actually agreed, like, yeah, we're not going to have kids.
Attention away from him.
Because it takes attention away from him. Well, yeah. Well, unfortunately, everyone else was getting married and having babies. And then I started getting that itch. And then after being pregnant a few times and losing, and those were on the birth control pill. I mean, if the man so much as breathed on me, I would get pregnant. It was ridiculous. So I did start getting, I don't know if it was the hormones or what, but I had this really, again, you have to remember, I'm love starved from childhood. I'm now in this marriage with this man that I basically have to follow all his rules and do tricks to get little doses of love here and there just to keep me hanging on, basically. So I start getting this itch to have a baby, because in my head, as deranged as it sounds, I thought, I am going to love this baby more than anything in the world. There's no way. I know my heart and I know my intentions. There's no way I'm going to be like my parents. Like, I trusted myself. I did not trust my ex, but I thought, this baby, if I can have a baby, it's going to be the love of my life. This is going to be the person in this entire world that's going to love me, because I'm going to love it. It's going to love me just the same. And it's going to be the two of us, and it's going to be phenomenal. And that was enough for me. You know, I didn't need the love of a man necessarily, or a partner or whatever, not even a parent. I just wanted a baby to love and to love me back. So I convinced him. And unfortunately, it was okay during the pregnancy, not great. He backed off somewhat on more of the physical aggression, but, you know, he was still kind of nasty verbally. But after the baby came and my attention and my focus was just on this newborn baby who actually did need me, downward spiral. There was no coming back from that. You know, some people have babies to save their marriages. This one just, you know, and looking back, honestly, I did not want to be married to this man. I questioned marrying him at all, but if we had never had kids, I might actually still be in the situation, which is sad when I think about it myself. But I was tolerant. But this baby coming, no, there was no way I was going to let him act in any way or infringe on yes, I was mama hen. You are not coming near my kid. You are not saying that in front of my kid. You are not doing that in front of my kid. So then he started to turn stuff around. This is when he started, you know, changing his approach to me. He started this threatening suicide stuff. Now, I am a conscientious human being. Whether I like you or not, if you're talking about you're seriously going to take your life, I'm going to act accordingly. I'm going to take it seriously, and I'm going to be a human being who cares about you, and I'm going to try to stop you and save your life. But he would put this division to where I'd have to choose between him and his life, basically, or I had to choose our son. What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
I always chose my son.
That's right. You have to.
Because I'm like, you're a grown-ass man. I know you're doing this to manipulate me, but even if I truly believed you were suicidal, let's get you help, or what? Well, I don't need help. You know, suddenly nothing was wrong. Yeah. But he would use the guilt of, I'm going to blow my head off. I'm going to kill myself. You guys would be better off without me. All this stuff. But then it turned into, you know, and I would drop everything and run to him and put myself in situations where I was constantly having to choose between my son's safety and, you know, like, how do I even like have my baby there when this man has a gun in the bedroom and is threatening to take his life? Like, because I didn't know if something would happen to me, if he was going to kill both of us. Is he going to kill, like, what do you do? So we had a few of these situations and he never did do anything. So then it started to become like the boy who cried wolf, you know, and I didn't want to blow him off, because there was always that thing in the back of my mind that he was so unpredictable. I didn't know if he ever would follow through. And I thought he might at some point, but I also worried for me, because somewhere in the middle of all this, he just hated me so much for loving our son more, that he started, you know, the texts and the emails and like I said, even telling our neighbors that he planned to kill me. And they didn't take it serious. They thought, oh, he's drunk. They just had a fight or something. They didn't take it as seriously as they should have. But how do you, I mean, you don't actually think your next door neighbor is, you know, right. You think they're saying that flippantly, even though that's an atrocious thing to say about your spouse. So it's one of those things. And like you said, they are out in the world, acting like normal people. And I do try to remind people that place judgment or have opinions that, number one, no, I wasn't that submissive, girl that could be, easily influenced and manipulated. I was strong-minded, believe it or not. I was college educated. I thought myself quite independent, actually. And there is something to be said for that, Latina blood. You're fiery, you got spirit, you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like I was this little demure, submissive thing that was mousy. And no, I was mouthy and I said what I had to say, but then I had to learn not to say stuff because that would provoke a reaction. But, when he's cheating on me and walking in the next day, and I mean, I didn't even care anymore. It got to the point where I did not care. I don't care who you've been with. I don't even care where you were. I'm not even going to ask. I'm just glad it wasn't me. You know what I mean? I'm going to worry about me and my kid, and I'm going to just work on me and not worry about you. We're basically roommates at this point.
Yeah.
But the other part of that is that
no,
go
break.
ahead.
Usually we do a segment, but we're gonna make this episode a two-parter because I'm all engrossed and so is Gloria into your your story. So we're gonna take a quick break, but we'll be right back with Dana and how she saved her son and herself from this abusive relationship. We'll be right back.
On an average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. During 1 year, this equates to more than 10 million women and men. 1 in 7 women and 1 in 25 men have been injured by an intimate partner.
Welcome back, guys. So we have on our show today Dana Diaz, the author of Gasping for Air, and we are going to continue with her story on how she saved herself and her son from an abusive relationship. Welcome back, Dana.
Well, thank you so much. So I think where we left off was where I was sick from the chronic stress. So here's the big joke the universe played on me, and this is the nice twist. So this was at the end of 2019 where I got so sick. I am 93 pounds. I can't breathe. I'm wearing a backpack oxygen machine with a mask just to breathe and get through work every day. I am literally like, my body is just dying. My doctor says it's shutting down. So I figure, let's get through Christmas. Let's get through the new year. Right after the new year, I'm like, I'm done. I actually laid down, and I was living in my basement because I didn't want to be anywhere near this man. I laid down one night and I was like, okay, like, I think it's something people do when they're facing mortality in some way. I just said, is this what I want my life to be? Like, I mean, am I just going to die one day and that was it? This was my life. And it's just so hard. Gloria and I were just talking. She was sharing with me, and this spoke to my soul. I asked myself one night, what does Dana's life look like? If Dana could have any wish in the world, what is Dana's life supposed to look like? I'd gotten a degree in journalism and psychology. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write. I had traveled before a lot. This man did not. I couldn't even go to Dollar General to buy cat food without being on a timer and a GPS tracker and being accused of screwing somebody. So there was no traveling. He didn't even allow me to go to Florida from Chicago for my great grandma's funeral. Like, this man was really isolating and trapping me. He told me our house was my prison. So I wanted to travel. I wanted to still go to Italy and Ireland and even just back to Puerto Rico to visit family and, just anywhere, anywhere but where I was. But there were things I wanted to do. And I wanted to be married to somebody who actually reciprocated love and respect and all the things I had to give. It just wasn't going to happen with this man. And I think that was my big epiphany that night, was like, I could either stay in this situation and just wither away until I died and that's it, or God bless you, I could make a change. and that change required me to do something that I didn't believe in. Born and raised Catholic, and people can place judgment on religion influencing you in these situations. But you know what? You did not get divorced. That was not okay. And it was one of the biggest factors, aside from the factors that would affect anybody in a marriage they weren't happy in, which is you have a kid. Do you want your kid to now have to go between two homes? Your families are intertwined. You have a mortgage. You have you don't have the ability to just go have another house, or you know what I mean? And at this point too, another little nugget was that my POSX had decided 4.5 years before this that he was just done working. He said he worked 17 years of his life, so he was just done. And I was like, most people work more than 17 years, dude. but
that was just another way of entrapping you.
Yeah.
It was another way of entrapping me, because I think he knew, and the irony was at the point that he wasn't working anymore. And I mean, he was, I'm not trying to say this as a brag, but he was making very 80 grand a year. It was not some
Back then,
little
which
job.
Was
it was significant.
Yeah.
We were both working, but it was significant that it was like a big screw you.
Yeah.
So I ended up, here I am with a degree in journalism. He moved me out to this small town 90 miles away from anybody and everybody I know. There's nothing but Walmart and a gas station. So what am I doing for work? I'm scrubbing toilets and washing floors, which there's nothing. I am not afraid of hard work, and I'm humble enough that whatever, do what you got to do. And I did what I had to do, but I am now physically ill.
Right.
I am physically laboring 10 to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, with a backpack oxygen machine on my back just to pay our mortgage and our bills. This guy's laying on the couch every single day, day in and day out, watching TV with a knife next to him, because the knife is there. I always say it was like my shock collar when a dog has an invisible fence and they have the shock collar to keep them within the boundaries of the fence. That was my shock collar, that knife, because it was the way that I knew that I better not say anything, I better not do anything, but there were all these rules. So I just had to keep myself, and it was fine because I wasn't even home anymore with as much as I had to work. So the good news is that I did have, the finances. I didn't have financial freedom though, but I think he purposely did that so that if I divorced him, at least in the state of Illinois, I would owe him part of my paycheck.
Yep.
He would get alimony. So he would get to lay on his ass however long he wanted. And they had just changed the law, gotta love this, that the alimony exists as long as that person is alive, even if they get remarried or get a job or anything.
Bullshit.
What? It's like child support for adults.
Oh
yeah.
My God.
So I think he knew that. I think because narcissists love the legal system, especially when it works in their favor, and they love to threaten with it. So, that was like legal abuse and all kinds of abuse all over. That's financial abuse. But he thought he had me where he wanted me. So anyway, fast forward here, I'm sick. We go into 2020. I'm done. I got to change my life. Dana is now seeing, she asked herself, I asked myself, I shouldn't talk about myself in the third person. That's so rude. But I'm like, what do I want my life to look like? I want to travel. I want to write. I don't want to be scrubbing floors and toilets anymore. I want to live my life, not his life anymore, because his life is not working for me, apparently, literally, mentally, physically, spiritually, in any way possible. I don't even feel like a human being anymore. So I think part of that epiphany started coming out in my actions and in my, I think I felt a little more confident, and I started to look online at what are trips to Italy costing now, or, what opportunities are there for writers? And he started feeling me pull away. But it wasn't until February, a month later, I finally was like, no, I'm actually going to call an attorney. I'm done with this. Call an attorney. We lived on a little farm, so it wasn't as easy as just dividing normal assets like bank accounts and a house. We had cows that were worth significant amounts of money. I mean, farm stuff is not cheap.
No.
We had pigs, we had chickens, well, they could be dinner, but that wasn't a big deal. But we had all these extra things. Sorry. But we had like farm equipment. There were other things that needed to be considered that are a
Right.
little more extraordinary than a typical situation. So I talked to the attorney. She gives me some homework, like, well, see if you can talk to him about this, that, the other thing, because this all needs to be figured out, especially with you being the sole income earner. But she's like, you got to figure out where you're going to go. You got your kid, da, da, da. And I told her, I was very clear with her. I just want out. I don't even care about the stuff. I don't care about a cow. I don't care about my car. He could have my panties. Like, I don't even care. He could take everything away from me. He could take my whole bank account. I just want my son and I just want to leave. I have places I can go, thank God. And I am feeling, and I should say this outwardly to everybody listening, if you're in this situation, believe me, there are people in every community that will give you the clothes off their back if you need clothes. They will give you a room to stay in. There are shelters. There are resources for food. You will not starve. You will not go without a roof above your head and a warm place to stay. I promise you that. And I knew that, but I was just at the point, like, I didn't even care if my kid and I were going to be on the damn street. I just wanted to be done with this man. I'm not going to fight over TVs and sofas and stupid crap. So, but she gives me this homework. Well, guess what happens right about February of 2020? Ding, ding, ding. COVID. Pandemic hits. The world is in an uproar. We go into a shelter in place. So who is now stuck in a house with a man who wants to kill her? And now I'm not even working because nobody can work. Nobody can go anywhere. Nobody can do anything. Yeah, me. Universe's big joke on me. I mean, it was like, I just talk about feeling defeated and discouraged. I thought I'm never going to get out of this thing. So I move everything I own. That's, my computer. I have a TV in the basement. I have a fridge in the basement. The basement became Dana's apartment. My son is living on the main level of the house and my ex is living. We're still married. He's living in the upstairs of the house. But this dude starts playing games. He turns off the water in the basement. So now the bathroom in the basement, the toilet does not have any water to it. Now, he's not dumb. He left the water going to the washing machine and the laundry room sink. But he was trying to force me out so that I would have to go up to interact with, because I have to cross his path.
From the laundry, I would fill up buckets from the washing machine and dump it in the toilet, like when we do in Puerto Rico when the lights go out and we can't flush the toilets.
Well, here's the thing. I was 93 pounds. And
yeah.
I was a cross country. I was a cross country coach, and a cleaning lady. So this is really embarrassing to admit, but I talk about it in the book. If he wanted to play these games, I was playing, and I was playing to win. I wasn't going upstairs to shower and use the toilet.
Good for you, man.
That laundry room sink, I was little enough that I could prop myself up there.
Yeah.
And I had all my cleaning supplies. I had buckets and rags and bleach and
there you go.
I will let everybody figure it out, but I was not going to let him push me out of that basement. It's humiliating and degrading, but you know what? We're not playing that way.
It's survival.
It's survival.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was not letting him do this to me. So it was literally like Survivor during COVID. It was like, who's gonna win this thing? And I wasn't gonna let it be him. But let's be real. This is a man who was texting and he wasn't even talking to me anymore because I wouldn't go upstairs to interact with him. I had a fridge down there. So I was easy. Apples, coffee, water, whatever. I just kept everything in the fridge. I don't need anything fancy.
Yeah.
But I had threats from him literally on my life in emails, threats of all kinds of things.
Well, that's good
And
to cover your ass.
Yeah, I was
Yes,
gonna say that.
exactly.
That's
Oh,
your
I
Nothing to
saved
benefit.
every
save
one
here,
of
I
them.
hope.
Yeah.
But what I was scared, honestly, that he was
course.
going to, because I was little, he could overpower me. Let's be
Yeah.
real. So I had to start being smart about it. I got one of my son's old notebooks, one of those notebooks they bring home at the end of the school year with scribbles and all kinds of stuff. It was like from his 4th grade. I tore out the stuff he scribbled on, kept the blank pages. I started keeping a record of all the stuff he was saying and doing,
Good for
date,
you.
time, because
Good.
the other part of it was he was gaslighting me so bad that, I mean, in COVID, we were all going a little nutty being isolated, that I started to wonder, like, is my perception really that far off? Because I know I heard that, or I know he did that, and he's telling me he didn't,
Right.
and my kid didn't witness it, and I don't want to drag him into this.
Oh, right.
So I
Yeah.
started keeping a notebook right when something was said or emailed, texted, happened. I was writing it down because I thought if something happens to me, he's going to make it look like an accident or make it look like I self-inflicted some
Right.
tragic thing. And I was not going to let him get away with it. So I kept this notebook under the couch cushion in the basement, the same couch I was sleeping on, because I thought if something happens to me, somebody hopefully will find this and they will know, and
Right.
justice will be served.
Right.
So it was a long few months during COVID. Fortunately, I was okay. And, when they lifted the shelter in place, we were starting to get back to work and everything. Well, my attorney, unfortunately, was so backlogged once the courts opened up. She's like, I don't even know when I can get to this. And that wasn't like, I'm like, I really like you, but like, I can't right now.
Yeah.
Like, I need somebody like that can get this done like now. Fortunately, I was cleaning for a very prominent judge in our area. So I went to him and I said, I can't really tell you what's going on. I just need you to know that I need to get out of my marriage like yesterday. Who should I call? And he said, here's the name of an attorney. Tell him I told you to call. And I called, and the attorney, after an hour on the phone, of course, tried to convince me, you're entitled to this and that. And I'm like, dude, you don't understand.
I don't want anything. I want out.
I just went
peace.
out.
I know that feeling.
Literally, I just went out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, you could cut my arms off. He could ask for my left leg. Like, I don't care. I just went out.
Yeah.
And he said, okay. He said, I can write everything up how you want it. It's going to cost this much. I said, well, how soon can you get it done? He said, 3 weeks. I said, I can be divorced 3 weeks from today, like legally, officially done. He said, yes. I said, I'll have the money in cash on your desk in an hour. And I raced as fast as I could. And I asked him when I got there, are you going to serve the papers, or can I take him the papers? And they said, no, we usually send somebody to serve the papers. I said, I don't want my son, having to see this. And he's seen and heard enough that he didn't even see and hear everything, but enough. And I didn't want to upset him. So I said, let me just do it. Okay. Now, in the meantime, this is the fun part. I come home from work one day, my ex is gone. I'm looking around like, thought there was something on the wall over there, and like even like a random knickknack, like, what happened to our stuff? Like, this house is weirdly quiet. He's not even laying on the couch. I went upstairs to my office, or what used to be my office. The master bedroom was up there. He took the sheets, the pillows, the blankets. Pictures of us are face down on the floor. His closet's cleared out. So, and here I'm smiling. I'm still happy about this.
Oh,
He's a narcissist. So think about this.
he's coming back.
He knew he's not stupid. He knew I was done.
Yeah.
So he had to leave me before I could
Before you
offend
leave
his
him.
ego and
Right.
leave him.
You can't leave him. Are you crazy?
Yeah, apparently that's what he said.
In his mind.
Unbelievable.
In his mind.
In his mind, I'm crazy. I might be a little. I don't know. After all that, I've got to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's be real. He was doing me a favor because I should have been standing there crying. And I mean, look I'm still smiling, and it's a few years later. Like, I'm just like, hallelujah, amen. God is good. Like,
God is good.
right?
Did you change the
I
locks
was
right
like,
away?
this
Because that
is
was my first
one-
thought.
Yeah, no. Well, this is the kicker. There's always a kicker with me.
Oh my God.
So we lived on a farm. Okay. I said that.
Yes.
We lived in the main house. The people that built the property built an in-law house. There was a little house on the property. Shit, Francis is getting this.
He's in the fucking little house.
Fucking little people house.
He comes in just out of nowhere, startles me because I'm like, oh crap, I'm up in like his space and I just found out he's gone and I'm thrilled. He comes in and he literally like grabs like a shirt or some random thing and then walks back out all angry. And yeah, I looked out the window, watched him go into the little house on the property.
Wow.
So my son gets home not long after that. I'm still like, I'm on my computer already. I'm telling the attorney, I'm telling everybody like, hallelujah, he's gone.
Right.
He's gone. He's at least out of the physical house that we're
Right.
in. My son comes home right after this, and I notice him looking around just like I did when I walked in, but then he
Right.
goes to his room and I'm like, ugh, I'm going to have to break this to this kid. And it's not like he didn't know. I mean, obviously he knew it was a tumultuous situation to say the least, but you know, for him, it was hard because he still wanted us to stay together. He had
Well,
actually
every kid.
asked me, yeah, but he'd asked me when he was about 13 or 14 privately. He made me promise to him that I wouldn't divorce his dad till he was done with high school and off to technical school in Wyoming, because his exact words to me were, Dad is going to make life a living hell if you leave him, and I don't want to be here for it. Well, his dad
he knew-
decided
he knew
life
what
was
his
going to
father
be,
was.
yeah, he knew. He still
Wow.
does. But he had one more, he was just about to start his senior year of high school and his dad just screwed that all up. And unfortunately, so I go down to his room trying to figure out how to tell him. And I stood in the doorway and I'm like, so I'm just going to say it. And he just kind of looked at me and he's like, just go get him. He's like, you know, he's just doing this for attention. Just go get him. And I was like, okay. And I looked at him, I'm like, you know, I love you, but he's out of the house. I can't. Because if I let him back in here, I'll never get him out again.
Yeah.
Like
You're right.
he may just be in the little house, but that's
He's
still out.
At least he's out of that space.
Yeah.
So no, I could not change the locks because my son,
Wanted to have
he
him
was
around.
always very diplomatic when it came to us. He was never, even if he knew, and obviously I'm
Taking
biased, but he
sides.
always knew his dad was wrong, but he was never going to take a side, because we all have to remember, no matter what he saw his dad do to me or say to me, that was his dad, and his dad was rejecting him too.
Yeah.
This was not the first time his dad had left us either. His dad had had an apartment. His
Right.
dad had had a girlfriend before. His dad screwed around a lot, but he moved out with a girlfriend before. His dad bought a house on us before when my son. So this was not the first time. We've seen
Right.
this man move out. This was just the first time he moved and stayed on the property, which, like my son said, it was just a damn game. But
Yeah.
no, But if I changed the locks or whatever, you know, if I restricted access, my son would just allow his dad access
Go
in
back
because he
in.
was not
Right.
going to play that game. So
Right.
now I have a man who has walked out on me, knowing that I'm trying to divorce him, obviously, because otherwise he wouldn't have done that.
Right.
No, I can't change the locks. He has expressed, written, verbally, and otherwise, that he wants me dead. Yeah, it was fun.
Wow.
So he's coming in the house during these weeks leading up to this divorce. By the way, I did present him with the
Divorce documents.
papers.
Okay.
That was a very nerve-wracking thing. I didn't even tell him they were divorce papers. I just said to him, I texted him and said, do you have a few minutes to look over some legal paperwork with me? Yes, I'll be home at whatever time. I met with him and on our property, And I just told him that some of the things that we had agreed upon, you know, because there were things over, you know, this time that who's going to take this or that, even though I didn't want anything. I didn't even care. Whatever he said, basically, I was like, that's fine.
Yeah.
So I said, the things we've discussed are in this legal agreement. And I always say, I hate how narcissists turn you into lying, manipulative people because it's the only way that you can get
It's the
anywhere
way
with
you can
them.
deal with them.
Yeah.
So here I was handing him these divorce papers saying, everything we talked about, all the things you want, I'm trying to protect you and me by having it in writing legally.
That's smart.
So sign here, mother trucker. And that way you will have whatever you want. And I can't come back and say that I didn't agree or did agree or whatever. Let me look this over.
Oh my gosh.
And he signed them.
Wow.
And he didn't look through it.
You know, I took the papers to the attorney. He said, you know, we do have to send him something in the mail saying that this is happening, and he signed it, no contest and whatever. What pissed me off was that part of this was that I had put in there, as far as our son, that I had full custody, obviously.
Right.
And he had never paid for anything for our son anyway. I paid our son's school tuition and medical and everything. So I kept it that way. He had no financial obligation to our son, nothing. To me, nothing. Basically, take whatever the hell you want. My money's my money. My kid's mine. See you later. Sayonara, whatever. He didn't even want the house. I was like, that's fine. You can't even qualify for a mortgage on it. So he even signed the title and the deed.
Wow.
My house.
Wow.
So fine. He doesn't want me. He doesn't want his kid. He doesn't want this house he had to have. I certainly didn't want it, but my kid had one more year of high school. He wanted to stay in his childhood home.
Right.
I obviously wanted to be the good parent and do the right thing. It was good for his stability, especially with all this. But my son didn't even know we filed for divorce. He had no idea about any of this. So we get to the day of the divorce. I am thrilled, as you can imagine. I mean, I went there. So maybe this is the Puerto Rican in me, but I was excited about this day. I wore this cherry red, tight, short, like club dress with like a sequin off the shoulder, little thing, for real. I had stiletto heels.
Celebrating.
I had this red lipstick that I wore on Christmas that he told me I look like a whore, and I was like, yeah, Christmas whore.
Look at this puta, and you're like, yeah.
This is my Merry Christmas.
I'm walking, right? I am
Navidad.
walking into the attorney's office thinking they're going to think I'm like his afternoon delight or something, like meeting him in the conference room for like a quickie. But I was like, no, I'm just happy. And I walk in like this, and this receptionist is just like looking at me and trying not to laugh. I'm like, honey, I'm excited. This is a celebratory day. This is Independence Day. She's like, people don't normally come in here happy. I'm like, oh, honey, it's a party. I got 4 bottles of champagne in the car. No joke. I was ready to party.
Oh my God.
It's like 11 in the morning, but I was like ready to go in my club dress. I'm like ready.
Wow.
Like, we are going out good.
Wow.
So I get on the Zoom with the judge. It was supposed to be me, my attorney, and the judge. There's my ex he was still legally my husband for at that moment. He's on the screen. They're like, oh, well, he found out and he wanted to possibly contest it now. I told my attorney, I'm like hitting him on the hand so like they couldn't see on the screen. And so he turns our video off and mutes us. I said, I'm like, no joke. I don't care what you say or do. I am not walking out of here today unless I am divorced. Like, I'm not doing this like, let's meet again in a month crap. Like, we need to be done. So my ex tried to pull a few things. He did try to make a little play for some alimony or whatever, but the judge, it was pretty quick.
It was too late because they
So,
already signed the
yeah,
papers,
so I
right?
left there divorced. I was good. And so, yeah, it was great for about a month, but then he was quiet, but he would not move off the property. He would not move out of that little house. He would not leave. He was like taking a stance
Of
that
course.
he was not going anywhere and I couldn't do anything about it.
Wow.
But then he started like stalking me, you know, and following me. And I'd see him at work or like at night when I'd come home, sometimes he would just be sitting outside, like glaring at me, like creepily. Like
Yeah.
it was
That's
eerie.
scary.
Yeah. And again, we live like out in the country, like
Right,
on
because
back
who's gonna
roads.
hear you? Who's gonna save you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had neighbors that could see, but you know, everybody had acreage, you know, so it's
Right.
not like they were right there.
Right
And
next
it's
door, yeah.
pitch dark is the other thing. It's not like there's street lights or anything.
Right.
So it got scary. So yeah, we had a couple incidents. Yeah, we had some domestic violence situations and I had to involve the cops. It's just unfortunate that the first time it was in the middle of the night and it was probably right before midnight, maybe 11 or 12 o'clock at night, but I was in my son's room. We were just chatting at, you know, before bed and we heard this pounding on our door and it was a glass door, our entry door. Heard pounding and I'm thinking, who in God's name is pounding at this hour of night? Like you know, I'm freaking out. And my son, we had been very protective of each other because he wasn't big, like wide, but I mean, tall, anybody is taller than me. I was so tiny back then, but he was taller and, you know, he had some muscle on him. So he had always been very protective, but more so now that it was just the two of us in this house and his dad's a loose cannon, you know, and he's a drunk. That was a whole other thing that added to the 25 years of fun. So he's like throws me in his room, locks me in there. I'm freaking out because I should be the one protecting my kid, not my kid going out and I don't know who's out there. Well, I hear this like screaming, shouting match, every cuss word you can imagine going back and forth. It's my ex.
Wow.
He had apparently found out that, well, my sister was getting married and this was during COVID. So it wasn't even a reception. She could only have the church ceremony, but she couldn't have a reception because nothing was allowing venues like that. But I was allowed a +1. And so I was taking a longtime friend of mine. I had actually known some of his family like 15, 16 years, small town. My son knew this family. It was very good friends with one of this man's nephews. But, you know, this is somebody that I'd known a long time and he had taken a liking to me. And honestly, we'd been hanging out all summer because he was a great support and we'd always liked each other. And you know what? I'd been done with my ex, honestly, since about 2005. So it's like, you know, there was nothing there. And I was allowed some happiness, temporary, permanent, whatever. Yeah. I was just trying to do me for once and just live my life. Well, my ex found out I was taking someone to my sister's church ceremony, like big freaking whoop, but whatever.
What a
He's screaming the most vulgar things at my son is screaming back. Basically, my ex was demanding that my son tell him who I'm going to this wedding with, who I'm taking to this wedding. And my son wasn't going to tell him because he's like, no, it's not your damn business. You don't need to know, whatever. So my son comes in and you have to remember, this is a 17-year-old boy. Yeah. Most 17-year-old boys don't show much emotion unless they're being snarky or moody in some way, or they're really excited about something, which doesn't happen often either. But he comes back, he makes sure I'm okay in his room. And then he's sitting in his room with his head in his hands, looking like he's going to cry, but he doesn't want to cry in front of his mom because he wants to be tough.
Right. He wants to be strong.
And I'm like, what happened?
He to be strong for you.
Yeah. And I go, what happened? And you know what he said to me though? He says, if he would have stabbed you with that knife, I would have never forgiven him. And I was like, okay. So I didn't want to tell my son because he told me, don't call the cops. I don't want the cops ever involved.
Right.
But the next morning, after talking with my dad, who is a Chicago cop, my biological father, not my abusive stepfather, and, you know, the man that I was dating, they were like, no, you need to be the parent. You need to
Yeah.
watch it for both of you,
Yeah.
because what if he
Yeah.
had stabbed your kid out
Yeah.
there? Like,
Yeah.
this
What?
man
True.
needs to be
Right.
stopped.
Yeah.
So I
It's
went
true.
to the court. I applied for an order of protection. I
Good
was
for you.
denied. The judge looked me in the eye and said she did not see that I was in any urgent danger. And that if it had been, you want to talk about judgment and victim shaming, if it had been so bad for 25 years, she said, then why didn't you come to the police sooner? I said, because do you know what would have happened if I came to the police sooner? I might not be here today if I came to the police sooner. That was not okay. I couldn't tell anybody. As far as everybody else knew, it was just fine. We were at t-ball games with cupcakes and laughing over hot dogs. We were at his family's for holidays, and he would sit there with his arm around me and smiling and giving me kisses, and everything was just
It's
great.
crazy, not to interrupt you, but those
No,
are the
please.
situations that women feel helpless when they do go to the authorities and they do
Right.
look for help, and then they, you know,
Because
they
the
turn the other
system
cheek.
fails you.
So the system fails you, and then they feel like that they're really stuck in this situation because nobody wants to help them.
Right.
And I always tell people to imagine how much courage it takes for somebody to reach out, whether it's to the authorities or just a friend
someone.
or a
Yeah.
family member. And if they get shut down or discouraged or judged
That's it.
in any way,
That's it.
do you really think they're going to have the courage and the bravery to try to speak up again?
Nope.
And how many women, and I'm going to say this, and men, honestly, it happens a lot to
A lot
men.
of men also. Yeah.
How many people do we see on the news or on these crime shows like 48 Hours
Yeah.
that had been through some crap and
nobody
ended
had
up
any
dead
idea.
And then
because
nobody
nobody
helped them.
knew
Mhm.
or nobody believed them or the authorities didn't do anything.
Exactly.
And that's the same
So-
reason why we always dedicate an episode or several episodes to domestic violence awareness, because one of our hosts is a survivor, and I can freely say that because she has freely said that.
Wonderful.
We've had guests on the show who are close friends that are survivors that have also written a book, and we've all had our experiences in our marriages, in our divorces, and we always try our best to bring some type of awareness
Yeah.
to the situation and let people know that they are not alone
No.
and there is help out there. And I'm so glad that you wrote this book.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had our attention since
Yeah.
the moment you've come on. And I actually can't wait to air this episode because
This is really powerful.
it's powerful in the sense that it's complete manipulation. Mental, emotional,
It's everything.
physical, it's everything.
It's everything.
And it's a different side of domestic violence. Like I
Mhm.
said, in the beginning, a lot of people think it's, just physical and verbal, but this is just a complete different side of domestic violence where women live day to day and they don't even put the two
Yes.
together.
Yes.
That
Well,
you
it's
know, I'm
because
in a
the wounds are
abusive
on the
relationship.
inside.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not, but people think if you're not walking around with black
Mhm.
eyes or
Right.
anything, that
That
you're
you're not
not
being
really
abused.
abused. But,
Right.
just my illness. And
Right.
believe me, after that knife incident, 3
Mhm.
nights later, there was a gun incident. He was
Yeah.
shooting outside. I mean, it just kept going.
Yeah.
And people do
believe
need
that.
to be aware that you need to have a plan, because when I it took me 6 weeks after a knife and a gun brought to my house. It took me 6 weeks to finally get an order of protection. It said he could not come within 10 feet of me.
Good for you.
Crazy.
And people need to
Yeah.
understand, the authorities, you have to watch your own back. You got to
Mhm.
be safe on your own. And if
Yeah.
safe, I hate to say this, but if safe means you got to stay a little bit longer until you can figure it out,
Yeah.
you got to do what you got to do for you, for your kids. And, you know, people don't even, I know it sounds silly, but people don't even think about the pets. I mean, I could go into a whole thing about that, but there are people that have to leave animals behind that are being neglected or abused as well. You know, it's not just the wife and it's not just the kids. And sometimes it's just one of the whole group of people, but it is something that people need to be aware of, that it could be happening right under your nose and you would have no idea. And that person's not going to just come out and tell you. They can't.
They're afraid.
And like Francis even said, sometimes you're in it and you don't even realize what's really happening, right? Because like you even said, I think at one point, you know, it's going to change, it's going to get better. Maybe it's me, maybe it's, and that's what happens, right? Because that's what they do. They start fucking with your mind.
Yes.
That's the only way to say it. I'm sorry.
It's a mind fuck.
It is.
And
I almost called my book that,
like,
but yeah.
Did I make this happen? Did I really do this? Is it my insecurity? Is it my judging? Is it my, you know, and it's like, no, it's not you. It's this freaking person.
But you know what? You're exactly right, though. I mean, if anyone knows what a scapegoat is, you become the ultimate scapegoat. I mean, I'm by the way, I'm very happily remarried to that friend I took as a date.
I was gonna say, is that your husband, the friend from the wedding?
Yes.
Cheers.
And can I just tell you, and I want people to know, it all is so crazy how easy it just clicked with him, because we knew each other and there was no pretense, but it just was easy. And I think we sometimes, like when I look back with my ex, I didn't like him. I was trying to make it work. And people say, what are red flags and how should I go about dating? I'm like, I don't know. When you meet somebody and like some people you meet and you're like, oh my God, you could finish each other's sentences. Like, where have you been all my life? Other people, you're like, oh, okay, I like you and it's cool. But but I'm like, why is it when we're dating that we try so hard? Like, why can't we just have a basic, like, you either click or you don't. And even if you don't click, you could still be cool. Like, just because you eat a meal with somebody doesn't mean you got to screw them or marry them. I mean, if you got to screw them, that's fine. I've got a thing about have fun till you find the one, but damn, you don't got to marry everybody.
Yeah,
Don't force it. But yes, I am happily remarried. But what I love about it, like when he read the book, I mean, he knew, he had lived through it with me, but he didn't know a lot of the details, because I really go deep with this, you know, like my mindset. He's like, he blamed you for everything. Like you get blamed for dinner. Like, it's ridiculous. But I want to also address the staying. I actually had I think they were psychologists, psychiatrists, some doctor or another that was telling me about an experiment that they had done with dogs, which, you know, kind of exemplifies what happens in an abusive situation. They were not abusive to the animals, but their schedules and routines and things were scheduled as such that it was not the best circumstances. Let's just say that. They were kept in kennels away from other dogs. They were not given affection or attention, you know, treated very basically how it was for me as a kid. Like, you have a house, you're fed, like, be happy.
Right.
So at some point, they opened the doors to all these kennels. The dogs could run out of these kennels. They could be together. They could be free. They could eat whatever they want and go play outside and do all this stuff. Not one dog left the kennels.
Because they're trained. They've been traumatized to be in those kennels.
That was their life. They didn't know any better. They didn't know anything about, so think about that. That's food for thought for people that want to say, well, I wouldn't, or why did you?
You can't.
It becomes your, you know, like I posted this thing on, I don't know, on one of my social media, and it was something about, you know, it might seem like a traumatic and abusive situation to you, but for me, it was just another Tuesday. Like, that's pretty much how life becomes. You become so unfazed by it that, I mean, even when I was at the point where I was filling out I don't know if it was the first or second application for the order of protection, but I'm checking the boxes, reading the questions, and it's telling me I'm in a domestic abuse situation. And I'm like, Oh, no, like, let me reread this. Let's do this again because this can't be. You would think that when somebody swings a crowbar at your head or makes you take too many prescription drugs and drags you to the bathroom to die, or I don't know, all the, a knife, all these things that happened, you you would think that I would think I'm being abused. And I honestly was like, no, there's no way. I would have never let anyone do that to me. Even I was fighting with myself, judging myself on that. And I mean, how ridiculous is this?
Because it's
But
what
that's
you
what
knew.
happens.
Because what you
Yeah.
knew from when growing up. But I mean, we can continue this conversation with you for another hour.
I know
I
forever,
mean,
but we all got to go.
this
It's
was
nighty night time.
I know it was a great experience having you on, and I want to thank you for your vulnerability and for writing this book and putting your story out there. Please let everybody know where they can purchase your book and your social media handles.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make it real easy. My website's the best place to go, danasdiaz.com. Link for the book is on there, but you can buy it anywhere books are sold online, ebook or print, whatever suits you. My Facebook and Instagram connections are also on there. There's a quiz on there if you want to see if you've are part of a narcissistic abusive situation. You could take a little quiz that'll give you some hints. And my website's a safe place. I don't want anyone to ever think that their information's shared or exposed. It's just we have to stick together and take care of each other. And I do certainly let people know, please reach out to me, whether it's on social media, email, whatever, which you can also get on the website, because even if it's just to vent or for me to just basically tell you, you need to talk to a lawyer, or I'm here for you, or send you a heart emoji. We all need just that little bit to keep going and to know that there's somebody out there that gets it. And believe me, I've been through it. I get it. And I know there's a lot of other people that do. There's a lot of people that have been through this, but social media, definitely Facebook and Instagram, Dana S. Diaz author. I post every single day, healing information, resources. We have a Friday funny because Lord knows we need to laugh about this sometimes. I mean, we've got to find some humor, and believe me, we do. So,
humor heals.
It does. It does. You have to get to that point where you can laugh about it. So yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. You guys have been just so amazing, and I really appreciate it.
With us and sharing your story. And my God, I send you many, many blessings.
Well, you too, my dear. You too.
Wow.
We talked a little bit, and we got some good boys that we raised. We're gonna keep raising good young men who are gonna go out and treat women correctly. And those of you who have daughters, I know you'll do the same.
But we'll be right back with our final remarks. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys, to our final remarks. So this was an amazing episode on a different level. An amazing episode, I personally would say, of courage, of inner strength, of motherhood, of love,
resilience, survivor, not giving up. Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about inner strength.
Yeah.
Amazing story. Like,
my heart is heavy and happy at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just
like, thank God she's around to tell the story.
Yeah.
Because that's really deep.
It's very
really
deep.
Really deep.
And I'm happy that outside of her being able to get out of her abusive relationship, she had the strength to want to tell her story.
Yes.
And write a book about it.
And to try again and have
a great relationship, a new marriage. That takes beyond courage, because I think
after living that other experience, it's like, wow.
That man, that we didn't get into that part of her story, which I was actually curious about too.
Yeah.
how she allowed herself to open herself up and make herself
To this
vulnerable.
person. Well, she did say that
To
he
a
was
new
always
person.
there
Yeah, he
because they knew
was.
each
He was
other
a
all their
lifelong
lives.
friend. Yes, that's true.
So he was always like a friend. So maybe this was
Mhm.
like the ear that would listen to her,
Right.
or
The shoulder,
person
yeah.
she went to.
Yeah, but Dana, cheers to you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
absolutely.
and to all the women
God
that
bless.
find their inner strength and
Yeah.
find that ability to know that, it's time to walk away. Cheers to you.
And that you're not alone.
You're not alone. Yeah.
That there's always little angels out there, like she said.
Yeah, definitely. But she was an amazing guest to have on the
Yes.
show. But guys, thank you so much for watching our show. Join us next week when we get together with the iconic and talented Tito Puente Jr. This Billboard Music Award winner continues to carry on the legacy of his father, the great late Tito Puente. Join us to the beat of his drums Wednesday on YouTube.
Tune in and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Wine and Wisdom 5. And mira, don't forget to take a minute to sip some wine and share a little wisdom. See you next time. Ciao.
Bye.
1 in 10 women have been raped by an intimate partner. Data is unavailable on male victims. On a typical day, there are more than 20,000 phone calls placed to domestic violence hotlines nationwide. If you or someone you know is a victim of domestic violence, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233.